So today, it's my pleasure to introduce Dan Dixon, Dr. Dan Dixon. I think most of you know him, but for those of you who don't, he started at the University of Maine in 2000, having finished his undergraduate degree at the University of Southampton in the UK. He did his master's, his PhD, and he was a postdoc through CCI and School of Earth and Climate Sciences. He has considerable experience in the Antarctic on traverses, has worked in the Andes several times, Alaska, and several other places. So tremendous amount of field experience. He is attached to the Institute as a research assistant professor. He's also in charge of our loss, E3RB, and does a considerable amount of work with developing drills for the Institute, ice core drills. As of several years ago, and I've forgotten how many years, the years go so fast, Dan became the Director of Sustainability for the University of Maine. And in that role, a large number of people, undergraduates, right up through staff, administrators in the university to think about, and also to accomplish making the university a greener university. And he's kindly agreed to give us a presentation talking about his role and what the university is doing through his office, the Office of Sustainability. So take it away, Dan.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, an interesting story. Back in 2003, when I was a grad student in CCI, I joined a group called the Sustainability Alliance, which was a group of students plus faculty, and those faculty included Gordon Hamilton and Roger Hook. And we would meet with then Vice President for Administration and Finance, Janet Waldron, on a monthly basis and give her advice on how to make the campus more sustainable. And she used to meet with us every month without fail and used to listen to us and actually do the stuff that we recommended. So it was quite amazing. And one of the things we recommended in 2006 was that she hire a full-time sustainability professional for the campus, which she did in 2008 eventually. And Misha Saros, who a lot of us probably know, was the first sustainability coordinator for the campus. He eventually stepped down in 2012, 2013, and that was when I started to do it. And then I became the Director of Sustainability in 2015. So been doing it quite a while. So I've got a lot to show you. And I will set up my PowerPoint right now. Okay, now I've got to share the screen. Tell me if this works. See that okay?
That works.
Excellent. All right, so I will get started. So first of all, what drove me to do this? Well, studying climate change pretty much scared the living daylights out of me. And so I figured, the climate change, it's definitely one of the greatest challenges of our time, and global warming is very real. We're in the middle of it. It's been happening for decades and it's accelerating. So as a society, what can and should we do about it? So I decided to try and make the campus greener and reduce greenhouse gas emissions coming out of the campus. And so some of the later slides, I'll show you what I've been doing in that respect. But as a society, I think first and foremost, we have to focus on mitigation. So we need to stop emitting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. It's not enough to simply cut back our emissions, and that will just slow the increase. We actually have to stop. We have to create a complete reversal so that greenhouse gas atmospheric concentrations will actually start to decline. Secondly, we need to focus on adaptation. So much of the warming has already occurred, resulting in significant changes to the environmental systems that we're used to. So we need to adapt to these ongoing changes. And thirdly, we've got to start thinking about resilience. So atmospheric lifetime of CO2 is around 150 years. That means as a result of the greenhouse gases that we've already emitted, we've got at least 100 to 150 years of fairly significant warming yet to come. So in addition to faster sea level rise, the warming will likely result in more extreme weather events, including flooding, heat waves, droughts, and storms, amongst other things. So we need to predict the severity of this inevitable warming and design our society and infrastructure to be able to withstand it. And finally, oops, it hasn't, you should have been looking at that. Sorry. Finally, we need to think about all of these things carefully and act on them judiciously. And so we need to think about sustainability and systems thinking as we think up solutions to these issues, because we don't want to create new problems by the unintended consequences of poorly thought out solutions. Okay, this is not going properly. Sorry, I'm going to restart this presentation. It's doing weird stuff. Oh, no, here it goes. Here it goes. This is working. All right. So what is sustainability exactly, and what does it mean for UMaine? So living sustainably means that we don't take more than our environment can provide without degrading. So if we degrade the environment, we're basically stealing from the health and prosperity of future generations. So in this presentation, I'm going to highlight lots of examples of what UMaine's commitment to sustainability looks like. So since 2007, the University of Maine has been a member of the American College and University President's Climate Commitment. And since then, it's changed its name to the Second Nature Carbon Commitment. But it was originally signed by President Robert Kennedy in 2007. And we've committed to be carbon neutral by 2040. So in addition to carbon neutrality, we've also pledged to complete an emissions inventory and a climate action plan, take immediate steps to reduce our emissions, our greenhouse gas emissions, integrate sustainability into the curriculum, and make the inventory, climate action plan, and our progress publicly available. And we have to submit those progress reports every year. So you can find all of this information on the publicly accessible reporting section of the Second Nature website. Oh, another interesting and exciting thing that's happened in the last month or so is that the town of Orono and the city of Bangor have gotten together and to start a regional climate action planning process. It's going to probably involve VZ, Husson, UMaine, and probably a lot of other towns in the area. And I'm hoping that I will get to represent the university in that process. And I will likely call upon several of the folks here to get involved as this process progresses. And it's likely to take about 2 years. So it should be fairly exciting and extensive. So historical campus energy use and emissions. The plot to the left shows UMaine's scope 1 and 2 energy use from 1990 to 2020. And the plot on the right shows the associated greenhouse gas emissions from that energy use. Both plots show values by source. So number 6 oil is shown in gray, natural gas is shown in purple, electricity is shown in red, and number 2 heating oil is shown in green. The remaining energy sources are only used in comparatively minor amounts, and they're just all of those little lines at the bottom. On the left-hand plot, you'll see that through 1990 to 2005, UMaine was burning around over 300,000 MMBTU of number 6 oil in the central steam plant. And that was all to keep the campus warm through these underground steam lines. And starting in 2006, the central steam plant began to transition to natural gas as its primary fuel. Campus electricity use peaked in around 2006 and has remained relatively consistent since then. And on the right-hand plot, you'll see a significant drop in the greenhouse gas emissions from about 2006 onwards as the transition to natural gas takes place. The reason for that drop is that natural gas emits around 25% less greenhouse gases, which is primarily in the form of CO2 per unit of energy compared to number 6 oil. Now, our reporting structure is such that we only report burner tip emissions, so it doesn't take into account life cycle analysis and the emissions from exploration and extraction and transportation of these fuels. So it's literally just the burner tip emissions at the steam plant. Despite the relatively consistent campus electricity use over the last 10 years or so, the emissions associated with that use have decreased. And this is a result of more renewable energy generation sources contributing to the ISO New England grid. And number 2 heating oil has been all but phased out from the campus energy mix, and it has also been replaced by natural gas. And so really the take-home message from this is that our energy use keeps going up. Our emissions went down significantly despite an additional 200,000 gross square feet of energy intensive space. And they've managed to stay relatively stable at about 25% below 2005 levels. So we're doing well, but according to our carbon commitment, we should have had a 40% reduction in our emissions by 2020. As it is, we've got about a 25% reduction. So we need to do more and we need to work harder. So the key to all of this is the steam plant. The UMaine steam plant supplies about 90% of the thermal energy required by the campus. Past energy efficiency efforts at the plant include the installation of a back pressure turbine in 2009 and a highly efficient dual fuel gas-fired boiler in 2012, known as Boiler 8. And prior to 2009, valves were used to regulate the steam pressure to the campus, and that pressure is now regulated through the back pressure turbine, which produces about 2 million kilowatt hours of electricity every year. So at least we're making use of that energy that was previously wasted. So despite the recent central steam plant upgrades, 09 and 12, relatively recent, 3 of the existing boilers that are being used currently date from the 1950s and 60s. So there's the Boiler 8, which was installed in 2012. There's Boiler 7, which is dates from 1966. And then there's Boilers 5 and 6, which are the really old ones, which were date from like 1958 to 63. And Boiler 8 and 7 are burning natural gas, and then Boilers 5 and 6 burn number 6 oil. So we're still burning number 6 oil every year in the very coldest weeks of the winter. They'll fire up 5 and 6 just as backups to 7 and 8, just in case either 7 or 8 goes down. They have to have another boiler warm in the background, ready to fire up. And so we're still getting through number 6 oil each year, and it's really not okay. Number 6 oil is pretty terrible. It's the black stuff. It's basically bunker fuel, and you have to heat it up in order to get it to flow through a pipe. It's like a black gel, and it's pretty nasty stuff. We also have 2 electrical substations that are owned by UMaine. There's a west sub, which is next to the steam plant, that was built in the 1950s. And then there's the east sub, which is over behind the facilities management building, which was built in 1966. Together, they serve about 98% of the annual electrical demand of the campus. And with the addition of the EEDC, which will be coming online in the next year or so, they're going to be maxed out, completely maxed out. We won't be able to build another building without upgrading one of these substations. So we've grown into the limit of our facilities. And along with the steam plant and the substations, the campus underground energy and utility infrastructure totals in excess of 152 miles of facilities, which include about 13 miles of buried electric lines and about 5 miles of steam and condensate lines. So due to the the age and the condition of our existing infrastructure, we've got this once in a generation opportunity to better meet the needs of the campus. So we've been working with, we put out an RFP about 4.5 years ago for contractors to come in and give us conceptual proposals to redesign our central energy infrastructure. We started off working with Con Ed. They dropped out after about a year, so we went to Honeywell, and now we've been working with Honeywell for about 3.5 years. So Honeywell's original project concept was a new energy plant, a new central energy plant located on the east side of campus behind the facilities management building. And it was going to consist of renewable steam generation through 2 biomass boilers and two dual fuel gas boilers, and renewable electrical generation through a steam turbine generator and a 6 megawatt solar PV array. And it was also going to involve reliability upgrades to the steam and electrical infrastructure, and also provide a big push towards demand side energy opportunities, which is, demand side means energy use in the building. So, you know, like HVAC systems, windows, insulation, stuff like that. So after 4.5 years of work with Con Ed and Honeywell, we're basically at the point now where we've narrowed it down to 2 options. And these 2 options are essentially additions to the existing steam plant. So both on the west side, at the same location, basically new buildings, a new building next to the existing building. And the 2 options we're looking at for fuel are either more natural gas boilers, which in my opinion is not satisfactory, or 2 new biomass boilers, which would at least give us a renewable aspect to our fuel use. The lens that we've been looking at all of these projects through is basically 4 goals. So we've looked at reliability, renewability, low cost, and stable cost. And biomass really wins out. It's about half the price of natural gas, and it's renewable, providing you source it in a sustainable way, and it's fairly reliable because we live in the middle of the wood basket, and there's like 2.5 million tons of excess biomass on the ground within a 50-mile radius of the campus. So plenty of fuel to be had. And really, but because of the price of the biomass, it's the only renewable fuel that actually pays for itself over like a 20 or 30 year lifetime of the project. So that's where we are at in terms of the UMaC. We were going to have a solar PV array, but because of recent legislation, LD 1711, that part of the project has now been taken out. So the state of Maine enacted new net energy billing legislation, which was LD 1711, in about mid-2019. And so the University of Maine system quickly jumped on it because it was a huge opportunity to save money. And starting in 2020, the net energy billing program provides significant financial incentives to distributed renewable energy projects in Maine. So it's basically incentivizing solar developers to come in and build huge arrays. The incentives are only available in the form of utility bill credits. So the bigger you are, the more electricity you use, the more you can take advantage of this. And so basically creditworthy entities such as the UMaine system have an opportunity to receive significant financial savings by receiving these bill credits on behalf of the distributed renewable energy project owners, which are these developers. And so starting in about 2023 or 2024, which is when these huge arrays will hopefully be up and running, the UMaine system will be saving an average of about $1 million a year via this program, and about 20 million over the full term of the proposed 20-year agreements. So the system-wide, we use about 69 million kilowatt hours of electricity, and all the 7 campuses collectively have committed to about 48 million kilowatt hours of renewable energy generation. So in addition to the bill credits, so it's a fairly complicated system, the way we have to like use the electricity, pay the developer, pay our electricity bill, then we get money back from the state in the form of these credits. So it's a little bit of a convoluted method, but we do actually end up saving money. But along with those bill credits, we also receive renewable energy certificates. So as a renewable energy generator, such as these solar developers, for every megawatt hour of electricity you produce, you get one renewable energy certificate. Now, these certificates actually represent the environmental attribute of the electricity, and they're decoupled. So they're separate and distinct from the actual electrons which are flowing through the cables. So the only way you can claim to be using renewable electricity is to actually own these renewable energy certificates. And you have to own them and retire them. So you let them time out, essentially. The issue that we're up against is that these renewable energy certificates are very valuable. So for instance, in the Massachusetts compliance market, they're worth about, between $25 and $45 a piece. So when you've got 45 or 48,000 of them, that ends up being a lot of money. So at first, the UMaine system just said, yeah, let's sell them. They're worth so much. But then I think they didn't really understand that once you do that, you then can't claim that you're using renewable electricity. So the three sustainability directors from around the system, one from USM, one from UMF, and me, we sent a memo to the UMaine system explaining what was going on and how they weren't going to be able to claim renewable energy use. And so since then, we've been working on a project to basically monetize the RECs, but then replace them with carbon offsets so that we can still claim that we're carbon neutral, but at least take advantage of some of that REC revenue. So to give you an idea of how valuable these RECs are, they're worth about 1.2 million every year once all of the solar arrays are up and running. And if we retire them, the effective cost of the avoided emissions via retirement of these RECs is about $106 per metric ton. And the equivalent cost of a carbon offset, so 1 ton of carbon, if you buy it as a carbon offset, between $5 and $10 a metric ton. So by exchanging the RECs for offsets, we get about 10 to 20 times more bang for our buck. So that's really what we're going for right now. We've got a meeting with Ryan Lowe, who's the main budget person for the system. We've got a meeting with him tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get a positive response to this proposal, and we'll be able to make the entire University of Maine system carbon neutral by buying these offsets this way. So that's coming up soon. And other things that we do on campus, we've got the Sustainability Tracking, Assessment and Rating System, which is STARS. It's a program of ASHE, which is the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. And STARS is a comprehensive sustainability rating system for colleges and universities that addresses the environmental, social, and economic dimensions of sustainability. Some of the points of pride from our 2019 silver rating include an 18% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions per campus user between 2007 and 2017. We compost about 400,000 pounds of pre-consumer food waste every year. And the resulting compost is used all over campus. So we maintain the entire campus organically in that way with no chemicals. So that's good. Got 20% reduction in water use per campus user over that same time period. 40% of our waste is diverted through recycling and composting. 60% of our cleaning and janitorial purchases green certified, and all of our grounds, as I mentioned, are managed sustainably and organically using our on-site generated compost. So those are the few of the good points that came out of this STARS assessment. There's a massive list. There's 72 different credits that cover all aspects of the campus operation, from teaching, infrastructure, investments, governance, everything. It's pretty intensive. So in our research and education side of things, we're committed to teaching and researching sustainability topics, and the ASHE STARS data revealed that over 75% of departments support sustainability-related research. Over 25% of Maine researchers conduct sustainability-related research, and over 65% of departments offer one or more course that includes sustainability. So that's great. There's also the opportunity of funding. So we've got these things called the University of Maine Green Funds. There's the Green Loan Fund and the Green Revolving Fund. And the Green Loan Fund is a financial partnership between the University of Maine Foundation and University of Maine System on behalf of UMaine. And essentially, we can borrow money from the UMaine Foundation and pay it back over time with a small amount of interest. So both funds operate on the premise that lasting solutions to environmental problems create environmental and economic benefits, and each fund can loan up to about $500,000 for projects that have up to a 5-year payback. So far, since the Green Loan Fund has been in existence, we've done 5 projects, and together they're saving more than $66,000 every year. They're basically all LED lighting replacement projects. There's the Mahaney Dome lights, the Advanced Manufacturing Center lights, the Advanced Structures and Composite Center lights, the Wallace Pool lights, and the New Balance Student Rec Center basketball court lights. And basically the old lights were like energy intensive, you know, high pressure sodium type things. And then they've been replaced with these nice LED units that save a ton of electricity. So auxiliary services has been focused on saving energy and resources for many years. They basically operate all the parts of the campus that relate to students. So like dining halls, dorms, and more recently they've grown as well. They're starting to do all kinds of other stuff. They're one of UMaine's top sustainability champions because they operate like a business. So they can make money and then they invest that money back into their operations. So they've been just improving over time for many decades. So some sustainability efforts in UMaine dining include buying locally sourced food. So originally we had a goal of getting 20% local food by 2020. They reached that goal in November of 2017. The new goal is 25% local by 2025. Hopefully we'll reach that early as well. They introduced trayless dining and unlimited access into the dining commons, and that actually ends up reducing food waste. So you wouldn't think it, but when a student goes, prior to that, when a student went into the dining commons, they would be using up like a swipe on their card, like one of their sort of credits. So they would pile loads of food on their plates and sort of, you know, balance as much as they could, only eat half of it and then waste half of it. So instead what they've done is they've gone trayless, so no more trays in the dining commons, and they've allowed students unlimited access. So you can go in and out of the dining commons as many times a day as you like. So you don't have this pressure anymore to eat as much as you possibly can each time you go in, and it's ended up saving a ton of food. So it's interesting, and it's been working for a while. There's a pulper in the Hilltop dish room that saves 400 gallons of water a day. There's a food digester in the Wells dish room that actually turns solid food waste into liquid and then sends it to the water treatment plant in Orono, and that's beneficial for the Orono water treatment plant as well. We've got an advanced composting facility, which was mentioned previously, that composts about 400,000 pounds of food waste a year. We've got hoop houses that grow greens, and those greens are served in the UMaine Commons. They're also grown with our UMaine compost. We've got the EPA Food Recovery Challenge that encourages us to divert our food waste from landfills. And a lot of that goes to the UMaine Food Pantry, which is also on campus. We've got green to go reusable food containers and compostable plant-based food service containers. So they're slightly less damaging to the environment than fossil fuel plastic containers. In the housing side of things, there's low flow shower heads, occupancy sensors, high efficiency lights, heating controls, and tons of outreach and education going on to encourage sustainability, energy efficiency in all of the dorms. Printing services is also operated by Auxiliary Services. They are one of the first print shops in Maine to adopt a chemical-free plate making process. And the Black Bear Exchange is a Department of Student Life. They are on campus in York Village. They ensure that all UMaine constituents have equal access to essential resources such as food and clothing. And they do regular food drives and fundraisers worth making folks aware of that if they're having trouble affording food. There are many UMaine community outreach efforts related to sustainability. Here's 3 good examples. There's the Maine Harvest for Hunger, which since 2000 has raised, gathered, and donated more than 1,440 metric tons of fresh produce and distributed it locally. There's the Cooperative Extension Program. They're the public doorway to UMaine expertise. They're statewide. And there's the Black Bear Food Guild, which is basically a CSA program operated by students. They provide fresh, organically grown food twice a week to shareholders. I don't think that was actually operating during COVID, but I'm sure it will get going again once things settle down, hopefully soon. Black Bear Orono Express, it's a free shuttle service that helps the university and the town of Orono create a healthier climate and environment by reducing carbon emissions and reducing traffic and reducing crowded parking lots. The Community Connector is a fixed route public transit system operated by the city of Bangor. So we pay Bangor and they basically provide the buses and the drivers, and we work on timing and route, the shape of the route and stuff like that every year. Here we go. Electric vehicle charging. We currently have 1 pay-to-charge level 2 electric vehicle charger available for public use, with 4 more chargers to be installed this year using Efficiency Maine money. We also have 2 level 2 EV chargers for students only, like dedicated for resident students, and 28 level 1 EV charging outlets for faculty staff. You know, of all the human source greenhouse gas emissions in the United States, about 28% come from the transportation sector. So passenger cars and light duty trucks account for more than half of those emissions. The average passenger vehicle that travels 10,000 miles per year emits about 4.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide. And so with over 250 million vehicles registered in the US, it's easy to see why transportation accounts for such a large percentage. EVs, electric vehicles, run on electricity only, and they're propelled by 1 or more electric motors powered by rechargeable battery packs. And the pros for EVs are they're energy efficient, so they convert about 60% of the electrical energy to driving power. A conventional gasoline engine only converts about 90% of that energy into driving power. So and a lot is wasted as heat. EVs are more environmentally friendly. They don't emit tailpipe pollutants. However, greenhouse gases may be emitted by the power plant that produces the electricity. But if you have your own solar panels, you can basically power your car from the sun, which is pretty awesome. And there's a performance benefit as well. Electric motors provide quiet, smooth operation, strong acceleration, and require much less maintenance than internal combustion engines. And there's reduced energy dependence. So electricity is a domestic energy source, unlike most of the gasoline that we use. There's some limitations to EVs as well. There's range. You know, currently a lot of EVs on the market only have like 120-mile range. But I think more and more we're starting to see cars with 200, 300, and even 400-mile ranges, but they're a little pricey at the moment. Recharge time for a large battery with a big range can be more than 8 hours on a level 2 charger. So you have to get these level 2 chargers installed in your house if you want to be fully charged every night. And the batteries do have a life limitation, and they're expensive. But more and more, a study by the DOE's National Renewable Energy Lab suggests that EV batteries can last 12 to 15 years in moderate climates and about 8 to 12 years in severe climates. So that's not bad. I mean, most cars in Maine don't last much longer than 8 to 12 years anyway after all the salt on the road. So they're getting better and better. Hopefully we'll see prices go down in the next 10 years and we'll all be driving them soon. The campus has several LEED certified buildings, LEEDs, an internationally recognized whole building approach to sustainability for both new and existing construction. We currently have 5 LEED certified buildings. We've got the Foster Center, the Advanced Structures and Composite Center, New Balance Student Rec Center, Wells Conference Center, and the Offshore Wind Lab. 3 silvers, 1 gold, and 1 certified. The observatory, the Astronomy Center, was originally built to LEED Silver standards, but it didn't, just through some complications, it didn't end up getting certified. And then the EEDC, the Furland Engineering Education and Design Center, will be built to LEED certified standards and hopefully will be certified. So we hopefully will be able to change this to 6 buildings soon. We're currently partnered with Casella Waste Systems. We offer zero sort, single stream recycling across the campus. We produce about 300 metric tons of recycling every year. And that goes to a sorting hub, and where I would say the majority of it does actually get recycled. And lots of campus education and outreach, particularly in the dorms. These posters were made for the cork boards, which exist in every single dorm room, and then these door hangers went into the E&G buildings. Where the university sustainability efforts have been recognized since 2009. We were included on the Princeton Review's Green Honor Roll in 2011 and 2012 for having a near perfect score of 99. And we've been consistently included in their Green Colleges Guide since 2010. One of the things I'm really quite proud of is Spire, the Maine Journal of Conservation and Sustainability. It's at its heart, an interdisciplinary and community engaged resource. So we encourage submissions from any field or background. It's basically a student-run journal. I just advise, and it's run primarily by grad students, but we do have some undergrads as well. So I highly recommend students come and check it out. It's a great way to get editorial experience, running the journal, also reviewing submissions, but also, you know, I would consider submitting articles to it as well as a student. So it's quite fun, and I recommend anyone to just check it out and have a look what's in there. It basically we push for the more diversity, the better. So submitted works can take any number of forms, including but not limited to essays, research articles, collections of data, journalism, narratives, poems, artwork, photography, or other digital media. So there's tons of photos and art in there, as well as poetry and also science pieces, data. I mean, it's quite rich. And submissions should advance dialogue around conservation and or sustainability and be relevant to Maine readers. So there's lots of other stuff going on campus, really too much to talk about. This is just a few more things to add to the list. But I'm not going to go through it all now. As far as Maine's path forward is concerned, we've been relatively lucky since the Mills administration came in that we've had a Democratic House and Senate. So we've been able to pass a lot of climate friendly and environmentally friendly legislation. Just a few of the things that Governor Mills has managed to achieve as she joined the United States Climate Alliance, which is a coalition of 25 governors that represents more than half of the US economy and more than half of the US population. The coalition is committed to the goals of the 2015 Paris Agreement. And so this was particularly relevant during the Trump administration because, of course, the Trump administration pulled the US out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Thankfully, we're back in that now. The goals of the United States Climate Alliance are in line with the Paris Climate Agreement, and it's basically to reduce greenhouse gases 26 to 28% below 2005 levels by 2025. So that's coming right up. So we'll see how we do. Additional Mills administration proposals, got the formation of the Maine Climate Council, of which several of us have been involved with. They've updated the Maine Climate Action Plan. Some of the goals are to reduce greenhouse gases 45% below 1990 levels by 2030 and 80% by 2050. There's another goal of 80% renewable electricity net generation by 2030 and 100% by 2050. That's a big one. The main electrical generation makeup is already about 70% renewable. So this goal of 80% by 2030 should be fairly easily achievable. Add another 10%, but the 100% by 2050 will be a big one. Rebates for electric vehicles and expansion of EV charging infrastructure, rebates for heat pumps and heat pump hot water systems, reformed solar energy generation rules and renewable portfolio standards. The university is taking advantage of some of those, and also carbon neutrality by 2045. So there's tons of stuff going on. So it's pretty good, pretty exciting. That's hopefully next year she will win and this stuff can keep moving forward. Fingers crossed for that. So what can we do? We've got to keep it moving. There's several personal actions we can take. Here's just a few. Vote, protest, do non-violent action, do whatever it takes to get your voice heard. Talk about climate change often. Educate your friends and family. Electrify your life. The whole world seems to be moving towards electricity and transportation, home heating, everything. So definitely start thinking about heat pumps and electric vehicles. Cause and effect. Think carefully about your actions. You know, every single decision you make has an effect on the world around you, you know, just from the amount that you drive your car to what you buy in the store to what food you eat, it all has an effect. So think carefully about how you go about your life, and be energy wise, be efficient in your day-to-day energy and resource use, from transportation to heating and cooling to all of these other things that you incorporate into your life and the way you just live your life. Basically, just be smart and be sustainable. That's it for now. So I'm willing to take any questions. If anyone has questions about any of those slides, I can go back, focus more deeply.
Very impressive, Dan.
Sharing.
Thank you.
I had a question. I was curious how successful you've been in convincing the resident students to keep their cool in the dorms.
When you say keep their cool, what are you referring to?
You want them to keep the thermostat down.
Oh, that's right.
That was on your list of things.
That's right. It varies from building to building. You know, some of these buildings are really quite old, and there's only so much you can do when you've got a steam radiator in your room. But some of the more modern buildings actually have thermostats that work. And I do believe that the HVAC shop controls the range that the students can actually adjust it. I think it's somewhere between 65 and 75, something like that. You often see a lot of these dorms with windows wide open. And I think that's a result of this ancient steam infrastructure that's very difficult to regulate. So that's a bit of the issue we have at UMaine, you know, more than 50% of our buildings have a renovation age of 50 years or more, and trying to actually make that kind of infrastructure energy efficient and sustainable is not an easy task. And so we're up against it in terms of the age and condition of our buildings.
Dan, two quick questions, but they're big questions. Tons of stuff that you told us about, and obviously I think many of the students are certainly with what's going on at the university simply because of all the science around campus. How good a job do you think the university has done in advertising to the university, but more importantly to the public, how much has happened in terms of sustainability in the last few years, number one? And number two, from your point of view, compared to other universities our size, let's say in New England, how well are we doing?
I think we're doing fairly well. I'll address your second question first. I think we're doing fairly well. As the slide with accolades and awards shows, we've been winning awards, and we get recognized every year since 2010. When in the early years, when we were making big changes, we got more recognition, and we were like near the tops of all these lists. Since then, there hasn't been that many like real big things happening. So we've been kind of waiting on the steam plant, waiting on the electricity, waiting on this and waiting on that. And since then, our position has sort of slid down the ranking. So we're still there. We're still on the rankings. We're just not as high as we used to be. There are lots of other universities in New England really promoting sustainability a lot more and putting money into it. And these are the universities that you tend to see higher up in the rankings because they've got more to talk about. As far as what we have done to promote ourselves, I think our peak of promotion was around 2014, 2015, when we had a full page spread in the UMaine Today and a whole article and a video made. And since then, I've done what I can to submit our efforts to things like the Princeton Review, the Sierra Cool Schools, and things like that. ASHE Stars, Second Nature. These are all things where we submit data and reports every year. But again, until we actually do something big, like this steam plant project, I don't think we're going to get the recognition that these other places are getting. But hopefully, once the steam plant project really takes off, if we do it, still not certain, I think then we'll see our standing go up relative to these other places.
Just a quick response. That obviously is always an interesting issue, and that's one of the reasons that big industry is not always keen to jump in and do things too quickly, unfortunately. Because you get attention in the very beginning and you can cut down 10, 20%, but then to go much lower than that, more than that, becomes harder and harder. So, but it seems as if, I don't know, it's not that I necessarily pay attention to all the media that comes out of the university, but I don't know that we're making as strong a case as we should about how much has been done. And the fact that we don't have a fantastic new director year is one thing, but for 4 years there's been a very concerted effort, which is impressive, and I think not you, you're doing as much as you can, but I think universities should do more in advertising this.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the president is open to that, but I think she's looking for like big media splashes that we can use. So I had a meeting with her and the provost, couple of weeks ago, and she was saying, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? And why don't we do this? And she was very positive, looking to promote sustainability, but also you could tell she was fishing for, media sound bites, stuff that would really sell well. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I do maintain the Office of Sustainability website, so most of this information is accessible there. But again, yeah, it's been there for many years, and a lot of this stuff has been years in the making. So what we really need is more stuff to happen, new, rather than this big list of stuff that's been going on for 10 years.
Right. But I mean, you should push some of those things to our website. Not that we have so many people necessarily that are related to the Institute and have been for 21 years. And in addition, we should talk to Sean, but Climate Reanalyzer gets 1,500 to 3,000 hits a day. And there might be an appropriate way to link there. The fact that Climate Reanalyzer is housed in a university that's doing such and such. Anyway. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yeah.
So Dan, I have a question.
Yeah.
And I've been impressed. I was impressed by the university's commitment to local food purchasing. The 20%, they came up to that quite quickly, I think, in 2017. There's been the increase, as you say, an increment to about 25% is the goal. That seems low to me, considering the initial amount they went. Can you tell me why the limits are of that order? Why aren't they 40%? Is it a systemic problem? If you could expound on that, I'd appreciate it.
You mean the 25% reduction since 2006?
No, the purchase of local food, right? So the idea, I think, the first commitment was to 20%, and they achieved it pretty quickly, but they really haven't pushed much further above that.
They did achieve it quickly, and that is because they were already pushing in that direction. Mm-hmm. But then it became a big. There was a student effort called the Real Food Challenge. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that was a something that the students tried to get the university to commit to. And we looked into it. We paid a group of students to research the Real Food Challenge and research the criteria and to see what kind of score we would actually get if we committed to it. And it was very low because the criteria were very strict. So we would have only ended up with about 10% according to the Real Food Challenge. So what we ended up doing essentially was creating our own criteria, and then we got about 20% by November 2017. Yeah. So the criteria we came up with were less strict than the Real Food Challenge criteria, but still decent. And since then, I think the Real Food Challenge has realized that they were too strict, and they have actually come out with like a version 2, and which is less strict, but we're still just going with our own criteria at this point. So UMaine is the only campus in the system that's self-operated dining through auxiliary services. The rest of the campuses in the system use Sodexo. It's a big food conglomerate provider. Yep. And so when we were negotiating the contracts with Sodexo, it was quite difficult to get them to really commit to a bigger reduction. So we managed to get them to do 20% by 2020. And right now, we haven't actually committed to 25% by 2025 in contract language, but they've sort of verbally agreed to do it. So we'll see where that goes. The reason why it's not much more than 20, I think we're currently at like 23, 24% UMaine. I think system-wide, we're over 25 right now. We're closer to 27. The reason why we're not, and again, that's according to our own criteria, but the reason why it's not higher is because the University of Maine uses a lot of food. And in the past, they've enacted all of, lots of different efforts to reduce food waste, such as trayless dining, unlimited access. They also have this digital ordering system where they order all of the food for the next day, only one day in advance, and it's delivered literally the day before it's used. Then they have these fancy flash freezing units. So any food that's left gets flash frozen. And the next day it's reserved using these, high-tech reheating units, steam reheating units. So in that way, there's a minimal amount of food wasted, because if there's a lot of food not used on a particular day, they can serve it the next day, and order less for the next day. And that way there's less waste. But because of that, the food has to arrive a certain way. It has to be a certain size. It has to be ready to cook. It all has to be consistent. It's this big, when you're cooking so much food, there's got to be a lot of consistency to it. And that is a problem for local farmers. They really don't have that capacity to be able to provide such consistency in the food that they're providing us. So we're trying hard to include a lot more local stuff. But what we really need, and what we've had meetings about this in the past, what we really need is like a food hub. And we've tried to start one in Orono before, like a food hub that brings in the food from all the local farmers, consolidates it, prepares it all the same way, so it's all the same size and same consistency, and then gives it to the university. But trying to get that consistency from 20, 30, 40 different producers is very difficult. But
Okay,
yeah,
well,
maybe the time is now to push for a food hub again.
I've seen other places they work, but they all have the same problem, and it's there are different strategies for controlling it. But the effect on sustainability of the much larger community and the influence of an institution like the University of Maine is huge when you can start reaching out that way. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
So I know we're just about out of time. Dan, I want to thank you for this inspiring talk. You've given us some food for thought and a lot to digest. I'm impressed by your energetic approach to maintaining campus sustainability efforts. Thanks for taking the lead in this. Don't let anyone trash you for doing this work or try to dissuade you through gaslighting. You aren't nuts. These are burning issues, and we all need to remember that what goes around comes around. I think Paul has something to say.
Thanks, Dan.
Well, both Dans, great acts to follow, without a doubt. I just want to mention that this talk was particularly interesting because obviously Dan is in this position in the university and strongly associated, and has been for a long time, with CCI. So it's really great to get the inside view on this. We have another new collaboration through Sean. Sean now will be jointly appointed between the Climate Change Institute and Cooperative Extension. And the Maine Climate Office has been associated jointly between the two for quite some time. So hopefully in a few months, once Sean learns even more about Cooperative Extension, he can give us the inside news on Cooperative Extension, because it's a great opportunity for our institute. I know several people have worked with Cooperative Extension, but it's a great opportunity for our institute to interact even more with people in the state of Maine. So we'll look forward at some time in the future, Sean, to hearing about Cooperative Extension. Thanks and all, and Dan.
Absolutely. And Dan, we should talk sometime.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, definitely. With this regional climate action planning effort, there's probably going to be a big component on vulnerability analysis and resilience planning. So I'm definitely going to be knocking on your door.
Sounds good.
Cool.